Oh, read me, Maras. Welcome back to the Blue Army podcast. This is episode 31. I am your host, Skelly. Today's episode, we are going to be joined by Wills, and to be honest, I recorded an introduction with Wills. So all I'm going to do here is hand over to myself and the Blue Army podcast joke of the week. Is he having a laugh? I think he's trying to.
It's the Blue Army podcast joke of the week.
Right, here we go. This has got the potential to be the best joke of the week we've ever had. But to be fair, only if you can get the reference. So here we go. Sophie Ellis Bextor has been found dead in a French footballer's apartment. Investigating officers say she was headbutted to death. Local papers say it was a murder on Zidane's floor. Sophie Ellis Bextor, yeah. What was her big song? What was her big song called? That was it, yeah. Murder on the dance floor. So, French footballer killed Sophie Ellis Bextor. Murder on Zidane's floor. Boom. What a cracker of a joke. Right, let's not dwell on it for too long, actually. Let's keep moving on. Like I've already mentioned, this is episode 31 of the Blue Army podcast, and Wills is joining us today on the show. So, without further ado, let's just get cracking on with it. Bish bash bosh, bish bash boom. Here we go. Episode 31. Ba ba boom. All right, me Maras, welcome back to the Blue Army podcast. This is episode 31, and once again, for the second week in a row, I am treating you to the audio delights of Will's voice. Wills is on the podcast today. How you doing, mate? You all right, buddy?
I'm not doing too bad at all, Mr. Skelly.
Them smooth tones, like a hot knife through butter. Beautiful. My ears feel dirty now.
I thought I'd try that.
So, Wills, what I've got ready for us today on the show, we're going to talk about the Cadbro Cup defeat to Sheffield United. We've got this weekend's win against Swindon Town. We'll look ahead to United's next few opponents and then catch up on some of the news coming out of Brunton Park. And if we've got enough time, we might have a bit of a follow-up on the old Messi story and do some Premier League reporting if we feel like it towards the end of the show. So we'll start with Sheffield United. And as is per tradition on Blue Army podcast, I'll give you the lineup. But the lineup's more interesting than normal, Wills. You did a little bit of research and we were talking a little bit through messaging. And you pointed out how young this Carlisle United team was that played Sheffield United in the Cadbro Cup. Do you want to talk a little bit about the starting lineup before I go through it?
About the starting lineup specifically against Sheffield United.
Yeah, we'll start on that, mate. We'll start on Sheffield United.
Because I don't actually know off the top of my head now what it was, but it was about 19 or something, average age of that team. Because I mean, to be as 19 years and 8 months, actually, I worked it out. Yeah. So obviously that was just an extreme example because we'd put a lot of the young players in for the Carabao Cup, which you don't really care about. But I mean, overall, our squad is very young. And, at first I thought, we must have the youngest squad in the division because when I looked back at some stats that had been put together, Experimental 365, a good website for stuff like that, on squad ages last season, if we'd had our average squad age this season is 23.7. I was like, if we'd had that last season, we'd actually have been the youngest squad in the whole division by a whole year. Yeah. However, not this season. We're only the fourth youngest. Might be different now though because I'm using Transfermarkt for the data, and that hasn't got our signing of young. Anuloni, and he's going to bring it down even more.
Yeah, but we'll talk about young a little bit later on when we get to the news.
Yeah, but actually third lowest 23.7. Forest Green also 23.7. Scunthorpe 23.4. So I mean, what I just kind of like thought of when I realised that we were actually only the third youngest is so there must just be a big reduction in how old team squads are this year. So either there's been a load more young players come through, which I don't think is true in our case. I don't think we're younger because we've brought even more young players through than normal. I mean, it's the standard 2 or 3 will get a pro contract every year, but then some also get released. But so the other question is, if everyone's got a younger squad, where have all the older players gone? And there's only 2 things I can think about. I don't think they've all suddenly retired. So either they're all currently without clubs, and therefore there's a lot of experienced players to be had, or alternatively, it seems like they're all at Tranmere.
They've all gathered over at Tranmere. I mean, I think a lot of players that maybe might have retired like last season or the season before, but because of COVID, they didn't want that to put a dampener on them ending the career. And I think maybe we have, like, for an average end of season, had a lot more retirements than what we would have normally had because of the COVID and people not wanting to go out on that note. I reckon maybe there was a lot more retirements than normal, but also, like you said, a lot of them just not getting picked up by the teams because, again, the COVID affecting the amount of young players that are being released over the course of the year. A lot of championship teams can't afford to keep the reserve teams and the youth teams. You have to make more difficult decisions, and so these players end up falling through the cracks. And most managers in League Two, with the exception of Tranmere, obviously, prefer signing younger players to 2-year deals and hoping that they can get some kind of profit made in that 1-year gap, I guess, leading up towards the summer. But we'll go into the starting lineup against Sheffield United, which was, of course, like we said, a very young lineup. There was Jensen in goal, making his Carlisle United competitive debut. Tanner, Feeney and Armour were sort of in a back three that had kind of like wing backs in the form of Riley and Charters, when we had Guy and Dixon in the middle with Bell and Toure playing slightly elevated above those guys, with Ampala playing in a single role up front on his own. Very interesting team, very interesting formation. I quite like it, I'll be honest. I quite like it. I've never seen Bell played in such a forward role, but that might just be me. I thought he was more of a left back or a left winger. He was more central on the left-hand side, but he was more central. I quite liked the starting lineup, but there was obviously going to have to be some changes made. Clough again out because of injury. I don't care about the Cadbro Cup, especially this year, because it would have been unfair of us to have expected us to have gone any further after having such tough opponents in the first round here. And I think we gave quite a good account of ourselves in front of a big empty stadium. So yeah, I think it was well done by a lot of lads on a very young age, against some ex-Premier League, now ex-Premier League players, and Raheem Brewster obviously being one of those players that, I mean, he's what is he, like £18 million worth of striker? Yeah. So I mean, you're gonna struggle, aren't you? He's just showed that.
Yeah, I mean, they had Billy Sharp as well.
Yeah, and Billy Sharp,
kind of like, he scored at every level, hasn't he? I'm sure he scored in the Premier League. He might not.
He's something crazy. Isn't he the highest goal scorer in the English Football League, like below the Premier League? Hasn't he scored the most amount of goals?
Possibly, yeah.
I think he might have.
He's always been one of those players that, especially around Championship level, always seems to be breaking records here and there. It's his own record or his club record or something or other. So, yeah, I mean, he's a really experienced campaigner, and they had a couple of others.
Yeah, Brunt in the midfield, Basham at the back.
Yeah. But I think we kind of did the right thing by not putting out our first team to go out there and try and get a result, which they still will probably struggle to do, and it might not actually be good for their fitness. But kind of put some of the a few of the younger first team players out there with some of the more fringe players and just say, go out there. This is the level I want you to aspire to. Because, some of these young players could be playing at that level in in 2 or 3 years. We've actually kind of done quite well in terms of players coming through at Carlisle and going on to bigger and better things, or even players coming in on loan and going back to their parent clubs, better players.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And I don't really want to talk about Carlisle losing for much longer, so I reckon we'll just leave that Sheffield United game where it lays. We gave a good account of ourselves, and we'll move on to Carlisle's win against Swindon Town, our first win of the season, our first goals of the season. I really enjoyed the game. It was a great back and forth game. It was end-to-end stuff for a good sort of 20-minute period in the second half. And in the first half, Carlisle were very good coming out the blocks. We started very well. Gave, again, a very good account of ourselves on the road in front of, apparently, it didn't look like it, in front of 9,450 Swindon and Carlisle fans. It didn't look like it, mate. It did not look like
I didn't see.
Did you not see? I didn't look like there was nearly 10,000 people there. But we'll go through your starting lineup for Carlisle United's game against Swindon Town. We had Magnus Norman in goal, Tanner at the back with Whelan, McDonald and Armour. Riley, Guy and Mellish made up your midfield three with Alessandra, Abrahams and Dickinson making up the front three. Now, Will's Clough out of the starting lineup once again, not being risked. I don't even know if he wasn't on the bench either. I don't think he was involved in the warm-up at all. I don't know that 100% though. Is it just a case of just giving him a bit of rest? Do we think that's all that's going on down there at Brunton Park? Is Clough just had a bit of a knock and he's struggling to shake it off, or is it a tactical decision? Because I think it's a tactical decision to keep him completely out of the squad until Port Vale and having that secret little, weapon in the shed that'll be an unknown entity to Port Vale.
I don't really know, because certainly I can't see why we wouldn't play Clough if Clough had been fit to play. It wasn't a game that we expected to be easier, or I think it's kind of like one of the games you probably kind of looked at and said, this is quite a tough game to start the season with. Mm-hmm. So,
very good 3 points.
Yeah, it's not a game that you would choose to rest a key player in, I don't think. Also, I think if we did want him to play against Port Vale, you wouldn't want to just throw him in. It is going to be beneficial for him to get some game time, because he might not kind of play a full match, or he might not be at his best when he does start, because he's had that great pre-season. He hasn't had any competitive football yet, and the season's kind of got going now. So, I think he's probably got a genuine knock. He is back in training. I think Chris Beach said he ran 5K at the weekend following the Swindon game, and has been training since. Tonight will probably come too soon, and then the weekend, I guess it depends how he is in training, whether, assuming that he is fit to play some part, whether Beach thinks that he's ready to just go straight into the starting lineup. It's going to depend how people do against Port Vale as well, because the two players that scored against Swindon were both players that might potentially have made way had Clough been fit. So, you kind of keep players who played well in the lineup.
Interesting that the Port Vale game is actually available on iFollow for the princely sum of £10 for people in the UK.
Yes.
So that's an interesting one. That might be a bit of an experimental kind of thing for the iFollow to be offering that back to the UK.
No, it's always been
for
the
midweek
case
games. Has it always been a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only Saturday 3 p.m. that they're not allowed to, for legal reasons, not allowed to broadcast live football,
Right.
and because it might draw people away from watching Man U. So they haven't kind of check that out. So I mean, I remember the season before last, or I think even maybe before that, as long as I follow's been the thing, we've been able to watch Tuesday night away games, or indeed home games if you're not at the ground.
All right, okay. Well, I'll be doing that anyway, so that'll be a good one.
Same.
I'll be enjoying myself tomorrow evening, or as you're listening to it now out there in Spotify or Apple Podcast or Podbean World, tonight or
hang on.
Or the day before yesterday, or last
it's
week.
certainly not tomorrow evening.
Not for you, not for the listeners. It isn't. Not for the listeners.
Not now.
No.
It's tonight.
It's tonight. It is tonight. Right, well, I noticed at the start of the Swindon game, as the players were running out of the tunnel, as my astute eye normally does notice these little idiosyncrasies of little individuals, Beachy was standing on the side of the tunnel and shook every player's hand as they came out of the tunnel. I like little touches like that. I like little things, little signature touches from managers. I don't know if that's a thing that he's done a while, but I quite like that, the shaking of the hand of every player as he goes onto the pitch to fight for you sort of thing. I quite like the notion behind that. Carlisle started well, so maybe the handshakes inspired them to start well. And it was only a short amount of time before Riley found the back of the net with an absolute banger. Abraham's working hard to get his toe to the ball before the defender could clear it at the outside of the D. And Riley hit it hard and true and low, and really good strike, mate. The connection, you can hear it on the audio, and the connection was just lovely. It sounded nice. It looked good. And it was a really nice goal. Not a lot the keeper could do about it. Great start to the game for Carlisle.
Yeah, I agree. And it's good to see that we're still doing this sort of fast-paced start that we did. We did that at the start of last season, and that was kind of like one of the defining features of beach ball. So, it's good to see that we're still kind of going out there and looking to make a big kind of early mark on the game. And, we did it against Colchester as well, although without the goal. But, there was kind of like that early spell in that game where it was like, we're pressing forward. Hopefully Colchester don't know what's hit them.
I mean, we had umpteen chances against Colchester. Unfortunately, just couldn't finish any of them off. But we're talking about the win against Swindon today. We'll move along to the Swindon goal. It was a set piece, well taken, looked like a good routine. Players maybe lost their man marking there, and Critchlow found the ball and stabbed it home. Critchlow, a player that we mentioned last week on the podcast as a defender that Carlisle might have been looking at, would have been a good signing. So honourable mention out there for our scoutful eye. I don't think we can criticise Carlisle too much for that goal. It was a well taken set piece, and when set pieces are taken well, they're very hard to defend against. Home team advantage, and I don't have a lot of criticisms about the goal itself. Maybe a little bit weak in the air from Carlisle, but you do see them happen, especially at this level.
I mean, it was one of those where you're kind of like, how's he gotten through everyone? But, at the end of the day, the opponents are there to find ways through your defenders. So, whenever you criticise players, and there will be some criticism of our defence for the way that goal went in, but you kind of got to consider the fact that every game they go into, they're up against someone whose job is to stop them doing their job. So somebody's going to stop somebody doing their job at some point. You just hope that it isn't something that's too avoidable. It's maybe a bit avoidable, I don't know, but I think you've got to give Swindon their dues. I think you're kind of right. Yeah, I agree.
Hey, there we go. We got one going the other way for a change. Now, it was a good back and forth in the first half, and it did go on into the second half. But Carlisle did manage to get their second goal just before extra time was announced, before the stroke of half time. Abrahams popped up in the right position, cleared up a bit of a scrap from a corner that came in and managed to stab it home from inside the 6-yard box. Like I said, when we signed Abrahams, those seem to be like the kind of goals that he scores, is the poacher role, the stabbing it home, the being able to hold his man off and get himself that extra inch or two that he needs. And we saw it with the assist. That's how he set Riley up. He held his man off, got his toe to the ball first, set Riley up. And we saw it for the goal here, when he held his man off again, really strong in the situation. But I was quite surprised to have heard, because I'm bad at doing research, I suppose. So sorry about that, listeners. But I was quite surprised to have learned that it was Tristan's first goal in 26 games, first competitive goal in 26 games. And from the celebration, it looked like it meant a lot to him. Well-deserved goal. It was a good performance for him, all in all. So, yeah, how did you feel about the goal from Abrahams? It showed good character, I thought.
As a striker, it's one of those where you're in the right place at the right time. And if you do that, then you can't fail to score. Although, some of our players have failed to score in similar situations. So we should maybe kind of, give him a pat on the back for even in a situation like that, still find the back of the net. And, as a striker, one of the main ways of getting goals is when you're alive to the rebound, which he was close to goal. He didn't fluff it. He didn't miss kick it. He kind of made it. He made a connection and did what a striker should do. Hopefully to start more goals. Because, listening to Radio Cumbria, they did kind of comment that he spent the second half of last season on loan with Leyton Orient, and I think that's where he had a really tough time. But I think it scored a few goals first half of the season when he was with Newport. So hopefully he can kind of like rediscover that form.
Yeah, the goals that I saw in his highlight reels were with Newport at the start of last season, and he was scoring them in bunches as well. So I think he managed to get himself up to like 5 goals in 6 games or something like that. But he only scored in 2 games. So obviously on paper, the stats look quite impressive. But he's looking good for us at the moment. I don't see a lot of difference between the way he plays and the way Impala plays, to be honest. Maybe there's a little bit more skill from Impala and Tristan's a bit more direct with his approach to a game. I like the options. I do. I like the options. They're very easy to swap in and out of the side together, which is what Chris Beach seems to do quite a lot, actually, is make that particular substitution, Abrahams from Impala, which is what he did in the game as well. Other substitutions, we get to see Morgan Feeney again. In the space of 4 days, Morgan Feeney playing twice. Yeah, so he's never done that before. That's a great sign for us. I like him. I like his reputation, and I want to see him play a bit more. Normally, when you see a defender under 6'2", they can play, like they can actually play, which is why they're a professional footballer. They can play with the feet. When you get a centre back or a left back or a right back that's under 6'2", normally they can do something with the ball. And I feel like, and I think I mentioned it before, that's kind of what we're missing, is a ball playing defender in the centre back position. Yeah.
So this kind of brings me on to an interesting kind of thing with the Swindon fans' view on Carlisle, because I do like to read the opposition forums to see what they're saying. And a lot of it was dominated by their view on Phillips and Lumsden on Radio Cumbria, because Swindon had some ball-playing centre-backs, Critchlow in particular, and they're trying to pass it around the back, and Lummy and Phillips kind of laying into that a bit, and the Swindon fans didn't like it. They were like, who are these idiots having a go at like our defenders just because we're not playing lumpet football? And I ended up kind of, I was explaining to a Swindon fan on the forum that I'm on that I think with Lunsden and Phillips, we spent about 5 years, particularly under Curl, but also under Kavanagh, trying and failing to pass it out from the back, and it's made them a bit biased against that kind of play and more kind of like, no, you need to just move it forward and not pass it around.
Yeah, I mean, two ball playing centre backs. I'll be honest, ball play is too much at this level. You can't play total football in League Two. You'd be silly to do that. You play into your opponent's hands most of the time. I'm saying having one ball playing centre back just gives you that extra option. You don't always have to hit it and play it around the back either. It just gives you that extra option at the back that you can also go long with. You know, you can also pick a pass and go long with it. Because if you keep going, you know, if you've got a goal kick on the left-hand side, and if you go short, you're always going to the left back. And if, you know, same on the right-hand side, you're always going to go short to the right back. So if you've got that extra option who can drop in and we can take goal kick short, it just gives us that extra option in our approach play. It just gives us that extra option all in all that somebody else can pull short and we can take a short goal kick. You know, I just like having those options. I'm not saying we have to use them all the time. I'm not saying that we have to use long throws all the time, but they're effective, you know, attacking moves. But I don't want to see a long throw every time we've got a throw in and around the box. I don't want to see that being done every single time. But yeah, you know, so that was enough action for a full 90 you know, 2-1 Carlisle on the stroke of half time. But there was still another 45 minutes left to play. It was good football. It was backwards and forwards. Hayden getting his double yellows and getting sent off right towards the end of the game. Curdy was trying desperately to make an impact on the game. The match stats read in favour of Swindon, but I think they were definitely chasing the game for the second half. But Carlisle being the more clinical of the two teams, we definitely have to give that a mention.
It sounds like, you know, we kind of like sat back and, you know, as good as it is to see Feeney play, the formation that we played once we brought him in, not his fault, but did seem to lead to then just half an hour of Swindon attack, followed by Swindon attack, followed by Swindon attack. And though just listening to it, because I only had kind of the radio to go off like a lot of fans will have done, because for the first time in over a year now, we can't just watch it on iFollow. So just going off that, it did sound like a Swindon equaliser was inevitably coming. But, you know, we held on, but it didn't sound like we held on particularly comfortably. And it sounded like that was maybe because we were sat too deep and invited too much pressure onto us.
Yeah, I think we started the second half pretty well. There was a chance for Mellish early on in the half, or pretty early on in the half anyway. Abrahams was making good runs. He eventually got subbed off at Impala. Impala was the guy who forced the second tackle from Hayden. No complaints in the sending off. Both bookable offences.
As apparently he's apologised for it on you know, to the Swindon fans. So he kind of like, you know, he's accepted responsibility for that. I mean, the thing I was going to say was, though, that I think it was in that past half hour where the stats started to rack up in Swindon's favour.
Yeah. It was. That's when the game sort of got away from Carlisle a little bit, and they were happy to sit back and soak it up a little bit. And well, thankfully, you know, we made it through, and we got the 3 points on the board, the first 3 points of the season against very tough opposition in their back garden, in their backyard, in their bloody well backyard, with a glass of Pimm's. Dear me. But yeah, it's a really good 3 points to have. Not a lot of teams are going to be able to go to the county ground and win. Well, I don't think so. They've got a good side. They do have a good side. My man of the match, Wills, has to be given to Tristan Abrahams. He got the assist and he got the goal. So very influential on the day. He got subbed off about 10 minutes before the end of the game, but I think that's because he'd done everything in his power and was just, you know, exhausted at the end of the 81st minute, I think it was, when he came off. So yeah, my man of the match has to go to Tristan Abrahams. So my Foxys feature man of the match is Tristan Abrahams.
Yeah, I agree, and I make the same kind of caveat that this is a rare game for me over the last season that I didn't get to watch, but I think you've got to give it to a player who sets up one goal and scores another.
Yeah, especially in a 2-1 game. Very vital things to do in a 2-1 game. Unless you're going to give it to Riley for scoring the goal. But yeah, in my opinion, it goes to Tristan. Tristan gets it on today. I might start keeping a tally of these and see who wins at the end of the season. It's not a bad idea.
Yeah,
But yeah, it'll mean a bit more then. Anyway,
yeah,
moving
you
on.
can award something to them.
We can always send something in the post. We can always send some Cumbrian tea in the post. I mean, I know it's not got to you yet, but we can always try. I'm sure we can send something to the club because we've got the
Yeah,
club's address. We can send something to the club with a player's name on it, and it'll get to them
yeah,
somehow. I'm sure it would. I'm sure it
yeah.
would, and it'll be up to them to take a picture and tag us in it or something from that point on. Be up to the kindness of the hearts if it happens. But yeah, moving on. I was over and ahhing about talking about Port Vale. We're not going to talk about Port Vale. If you want to listen to me and Will talk about Port Vale, you can listen to it on last week's episode. We talked about we did a prediction on last week's
Yeah.
episode. So the last 10 minutes, I think, of last week's episode, we talked about the Port Vale game and talked a little bit about Messi. So you'll find it if you want to go back and listen to that. Go back and listen to what we think is going to happen at Port Vale. By the time you guys are listening to this, that match has already happened. But obviously, me and Wills don't know what happened, so we'll talk about it at a later date. So moving on, we'll talk about the Leyton Orient game that's happening on Saturday. Leyton Orient are a side that have started the season with 4 points like we did and got knocked out of the Cadbro Cup by a championship side like we did. They've recruited quite strongly. Most of their recruits come in via frees from the Championship and the Scottish Premier League. Some good players, some competitive players, some experienced players. Not one of the youngest sides in the league. Leyton Orient normally do a pretty good job of recruitment because of being a London-based team can help with
Yeah.
recruitment big time. I think it's going to be a good game. I always fancy us against Leyton Orient. I think we've got quite a good record of our history against Leyton Orient. A draw or a win is normally how it goes down. But
Yeah.
they're coming off the back of a 3-0 win against Exeter. Obviously, they'll play tonight as well. Yeah, before I give my prediction, Wills, have you got anything to say about Leyton Orient?
Yeah, so Leyton Orient, I think, are one of the teams with Kenny Jackett as a manager. One of the teams that I think people are expecting to do really well this season, and they also had a postponement on Tuesday, so they're maybe a little bit fresher. They were due to play Harrogate, but Harrogate have had the COVID outbreak, so that game was postponed. So that means that they've only played one. No, they've played two. Oh, sorry. Yeah, because we're talking about Saturday.
Yeah.
Rewind. Yeah. So I mean, by the time Saturday comes, so Leyton Orient was supposed to play Harrogate tonight, but that game's been postponed because of COVID outbreak in Harrogate's squad. So come Saturday, they'll have still only played the two games in League Two, and they might be a little bit more fresh. Depends how we do against Port Vale. If we go out and do really well against Port Vale, it might be to our benefit that we've come in on the back of a win. But at the moment, I'd say kind of there's a few things to suggest that this is going to be a really difficult game. Quick look at their squad. They've got in there. Well, Lawrence Vigouroux, their goalkeeper, is he's a really experienced keeper at this level. Did well for them last season. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They've got.
He did play really well against Carlisle last year, I believe. He had a hell of a performance, actually.
Yeah, they've got one or two players that I remember having not so good games against us when we played them last season. I don't know whether these players are still in their starting lineup, but Dan Happ.
Mm-hmm.
I remember he kind of like was struggled a bit in our game against them. Just look through their team to see if there's anyone that stands out. As Ruel Sotiriou is a young player who I think he must have come through their academy because he's still only 20 and I think he's been with them for a while. But I think he's kind of like one of these that kind of he gets kind of picked out as one to look at, as one to watch a little bit every season. Yeah, they've got a few players in there. They've got a huge amount of players that I'm familiar with.
They haven't got a lot of recognisable names, no. The teams that they've recruited from, QPR, Charlton, Tottenham, you've heard of them, but the players have been probably playing a lot of under-23s football, maybe sort of like that Championship, League One, a couple of appearances on loan, maybe a couple of short loan spells, that kind of a thing. So not our area of expertise, but players that have came from good training nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, they brought in Omar Beckles from Crewe. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's a name that I'm familiar with, and Crewe are a good team. I can't really remember how good he is, but I'm guessing he's a centre back, so I'm guessing he's kind of come in and he's going to be a bit more solid for them at the back and in front of Vigouroux. So maybe we're to expect them to be quite good defensively. Just doing all my research on the fly here. I don't know if you do that when you do these pods, and suddenly you want to kind of like
I send you my notes, so I do a bit of research. Thank you very much. I do a bit of research. It's not all just off the cuff. We can't make it sound too easy, otherwise everyone will have a podcast. Oh, hang on a minute, wait. Everyone does have a podcast.
they held Exeter to they beat Exeter 3-0, so they kept Exeter from scoring. But I don't know if Exeter necessarily are going to be as good this season as they have been. So, I mean, they don't have Ryan Bowman Exeter anymore. So, like, it's hard to say, when you look at a team's previous results this early in the season. Well, they beat Exeter 3-0. Is that a really good result, or are Exeter just going to be like really poor this season? I don't know.
It's hard to tell at the early stage of the season.
Yeah,
it is hard to
tell. I think Exeter will be decent. They've not started well.
a draw against Salford City on the first day of the season for them is a good result. Away against Salford City is a good result. So I mean, 4 points for them out of the two games, same as us. They seem like they've got their act together. They know how to play a bit of football. They obviously there's a bit of team cohesion going on there. They don't look like they're a side that are going to... Normally, sides that start a season well don't go on to struggle. Normally strong starts at least get mid-table finishes. So it should be a good... I think they're a good side. But obviously, being at Brunton Park, we're going to trout them. We're going to absolutely walk through them back at Brunton Park in front of a stonking crowd of thousands of people. And I'm going to say, because they scored 3 goals. They do score goals. They're a team that like to score goals. We've just started scoring goals. Hopefully Tristan can get on something. Hopefully Clough has a couple of minutes under his belt by the weekend. And he can get a goal as well. I'm going to say 3-2 to Carlisle. 4-2. I'm saying 4-2 to Carlisle.
And I'm going to go a little bit more conservative, and I'm going to say 1-1.
1-1.
Yeah, I think I think we can be quite decent defensively. So, I think we maybe kind of look at us preventing them from scoring rather than scoring a bunch ourselves. Or based on how we've been the rest of the season so far, I feel like that's more likely. But that's just me.
I mean, as long as we take our chance, we create. Carlisle started the season well. Last season, we were pretty much the same. We create a lot of chances. I remember saying in a lot of videos last season, we've had like teen chances, umpteen, 14, 15, 16 chances in a game. I'm pretty sure in a game we had 21 chances in a game and didn't score a goal. So we do create a lot, and if we can get someone on a rich vein of form, then we've got goals in our sides, and there's no reason why somebody like Clough can't score 20 at this level. There's no reason why someone like Tristan can't poke home 20 at this level. Obviously, I'm being excitable right now, but even still, I'd like to see us win. And I think we can outscore most teams in this division with the way that we play football and with the way that Chris Beach can change things in games, with the options that we've got, with now the extra addition of Brad Young, which we're about to talk about actually. But first, I want to give a quick mention. We'll move on to some news, unless you've got anything else to say about Leyton Orient. You've given your prediction.
Nope. Yeah, I've talked quite a lot about them.
No, we did good there. We did good there, mate. That's good. It's good. So we'll move on to some news. The first little bit of news I want to touch on is away to Hartlepool. Is almost sold out. So if you guys want to get tickets or anything for Hartlepool, so you can get yourselves down there, get your act together and buy them soon, because they're nearly sold out. There's only about 900 tickets available, and it looks like, because it's the first time in a while since we've been able to play Hartlepool competitively, that we're going to go back the boys, and it's close to selling out. So get yourselves your tickets soon if you want to go down to Hartlepool. Also, I did see this in comment sections, Will, and I might cut this bit out if I sound a bit drainy. So I wanted to say it with you rather than in my introductions. If you don't get tickets because it sells out, don't have a go at other people, and don't call them fair weather fans, or I've got a season ticket, so I should be going. It's not fair. There should be a better way of doing it, that I get tickets and other people don't get tickets because I know who scored in the cup final in 1977 and this, that, and the other. I don't like that kind of like I'm a better fan than you mentality. I want, we're all fans. We've all got that thing in common, so let's share it. Let's not get all twisted and bitter. It's not our fault. Blame Hartlepool. They're not going to sell out the bloody stadium at all. Blame Hartlepool. They could have gave us an extra 1,000 seats easily. Blame bloody Hartlepool. That's where you should direct your anger. Don't have us squabbling. Direct your anger towards Hartlepool. That's what we should be doing. How
many have they given us?
900. I think we could do with an extra 300 or 400. I think we could sell a bit more than that, and then nobody would be squabbling, and Hartlepool would make a little bit more money. But moving away from that was just a light bit of news anyway. Didn't want to stick on that for too long. Sam Fishburne has gone on loan until January. He has gone on loan with Lancaster City. In my opinion, not a high enough level of competition for Sam Fishburne. I would rather have kept him around Brunton Park. I don't think Lancaster City is a high enough level of competition. I think maybe Barrow are stupid not to have maybe offered him a loan deal and see what he could do over at Barrow.
Not to send him to Barrow.
Why bloody not? It's good experience.
They're in the same division as us.
No, it's good experience. Exactly. He might be able to get off the bench for Barrow.
I'm not a fan of sending players in the same division as us unless it's a player who hasn't got a future at the club, but you can't sell for some reason. But not sending players. I mean, like, what if we send him to Barrow and he goes and scores like 10 goals between now and January, and then he says,
bring him back.
And then he says, "Well, I'd rather not come back. I'd rather sign for Barrow."
Where would you send him then? Leyton Orient? Just send him down I don't like it down here. Like, where would you send him?
I mean, the conference.
Yeah, the conference. I think the conference is a much fairer level. Go Wrexham. Go and join Hayden at Wrexham for a little bit. See how that goes. You know what I mean? Just do 6 months. And then there you go. They'll be in his ear. I signed a contract with us. I'll give you all my money. I don't know why. It was supposed to be Ryan Reynolds' impression there. That was terrible. My name's Ryan Reynolds. I don't know who that is. That's Nelson Mandela. My name is Nelson Mandela. No, mate. What am I doing?
I didn't really see Nelson Mandela impressions kind of being a feature of today's pod.
No, they really weren't supposed to be. I feel like we're getting way far off topic. But anyway, Sam Fishburne on loan till January. Lancaster City, in my opinion, not a high enough level for him to be gaining experience at. I would have I've tried to get him in at a slightly higher level, at least conference, at least coming off the bench in the conference, playing those league trophy games. What's it called? The FA Trophy Vars, whatever it is. Playing those kind of games. At least playing some football at a higher level. Go on, sorry.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily just because you send him so that he can play at a certain level, but also you've got a player who's been doing really well in your youth system and is now a pro at your club, but you want him to get a lot of competitive games because you want him to get used to being kicked about a bit, and as a striker you want him to be used to defenders.
Workington's a higher level, isn't it, than Lancaster?
Well, no, Workington at now. Workington are in Northern League Premier, are they, or are they not even in that?
I think they are. I think they're in Northern League Premier.
I feel sorry for Workington because they've basically won promotion twice and not been promoted.
Yeah, they went to a Northern Premier promotion against Salford City after they got taken over by the class of '92 lads or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Alex Mitchell mentioned that in a Blue Army podcast interview. You can go back and listen to that episode if you're ever interested.
Yeah, Workington are in the Northern Premier. Workington are at the same level as Lancaster.
I mean, yeah, fair enough. But I mean, wouldn't you rather be at Workington than Lancaster, even if they're at the same level?
Don't know.
I imagine it's a youth loan deal, and what youth loan deal normally means is that he's going to be training with Carlisle and going down just for the games.
Yeah,
for Lancaster City. That's what a youth loan deal normally means. So he'd be training with Carlisle's first team, and then just going on the Saturdays and the Tuesday nights or whatever for the Lancaster League and Cup games.
Workington might even have been. It's really difficult to find out what's going on in non-league. I think Workington might actually now be in the division below Lancaster.
All right, okay.
Workington. I mean, Wikipedia still has their manager as Danny Granger, so it's
well behind.
It's not easy to kind of like keep track of what's going on at that level of tin-pottedness where they can't even keep their Wikipedia articles up to date.
No, it's well behind. But probably the reason why Sam Fishburn was pushed out on loan was because Carlisle brought in a striker on loan from Aston Villa. As we've already mentioned on today's show, Brad Young has signed for Carlisle United on a season-long loan.
Yeah.
On paper, looks like a smart decision to make. He's made his debut for the first team at Villa already. He's been playing in the under-23 games in the Papa John's Trophy, so he has played in and around this level of football. He signed his professional contracts at 16, which is normally a sign that a player has lots of potential and is obviously competing at the age of 16 with players that are 18 and 19. So obviously showing a good standard there. Quite surprised that no one else at a higher level snapped him up, to be completely honest. When you get a striker with a lot of potential, I mean, teams need goals at League One level, League Two level. All teams need goals, really. And he's one of those players where he'd fit into a lot of sides, it seems. And we've done quite well to secure this one. Have you had a chance to read up a little bit about Brad Young?
Only really what Chris Beecher said, which is that he's a striker in the Jamie Vardy kind of mould. Without being too critical about comparing a striker of this level to Jamie Vardy, because I don't think that's what Chris Beecher means, that he's going to be playing for England within the next couple of years, he might, but is presumably strong, quick, knows where the goal is.
I think it's one of those, when he was talking like that, it sounded like he was also he's describing Alessandro as well. That sort of player. It sounds like that's the competition that he's set up with this move, is for somebody to be pushing Alessandro. Because Alessandro is normally the first name on the team sheet probably you always expect to see his name on the
Callum
team sheet
Guy's
now.
the first name on the team sheet.
Well, true. But you're not what I'm saying. He's not very far.
Yeah.
He's not very far behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You would raise an eyebrow if his name wasn't on the team sheet because you're so used to seeing it these days on the right hand side of that attacking three.
Ooh, I love being pedantic with you.
Let's have a bicker. So. Yeah, I think it's a good signing. I think it's a good to push Alessandra as well. I don't think he's had a lot of competition for his particular role. Obviously, Ethan Walker was there last season. I think Ethan Walker's attitude was all wrong. He looked a decent player, but his reactions when he was being subbed off and things like that over the course of the season, the times that I saw him, yes, I understand it's frustrating to be sitting on the bench while you're on loan. You want to be playing minutes, but I don't think his professionalism was visibly shaken by what was happening in front of him and not being able to get the minutes, and he was visibly annoyed. And obviously he's a young player and maybe didn't keep his head in situations where he should have kept his head. But when you're being held out of a team by a player like Alessandra, I mean, he gives his heart every week he plays. You know, you can't fault Alessandra's effort. Sometimes you can fault his end product, but his effort is always pretty much the same. He commits and he plays some good football most of the time, but the effort is always there. Good signing, mate. I think it's a good signing. Moving away from Carlisle news, unless you've got anything else you'd like to mention about Carlisle news.
No, you've covered everything that I could have possibly thought of.
Yeah. Moving away from Carlisle news, following up on last week's episode, we spoke about the departure of Lionel Messi leaving Barcelona because of budgets. Not because of like financial troubles. Will cleared that up for us. But because of budgets and the way that things are being done now in La Liga. Messi's going to PSG or gone to PSG. I haven't really done a lot of research on it. I'll let Wills take the lead on this one. So, Wills, what have you got for us as far as the Messi saga goes?
Okay, so yes, I mean, it was kind of expected, although I think PSG were umming and ahhing over, whether they could actually afford him, but they have signed Lionel Messi, and he's going to go there, and he's going to join Neymar and Kylian Mbappe in PSG's front three, and now apparently PSG are interested in getting Ronaldo, so PSG want to have Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar, and Mbappe all in the same team, which is stupid. And I hope they lose every game if they do that, because I've got too many attackers and just no one behind them.
A couple of 35-year-olds on the wings.
I mean, the other thing as well is, so Messi he's often been criticised when comparing him with Ronaldo, in that Messi's only ever played in La Liga, and in La Liga you've got two big teams, and three big teams, Atletico, and then there's maybe a couple of teams below there who can provide a bit of a challenge, and then just loads of, if you don't want to be too rude about them, also runs, who teams like Barcelona and Real Madrid will just churn out 4 and 5-0 victories against most of the teams in La Liga. So saying the quality of opposition's not been there. Ronaldo's done it in the Premier League and he's currently doing it in Italy. So Lionel Messi ends up going to Paris Saint-Germain, playing in the French Ligue 1, where there's one good team. and then you've got like teams like Lyon, who are occasionally good. Are Monaco good anymore? I don't know. There's usually, because obviously they get like, I think 3 or maybe even 4 Champions League qualifications. There's always kind of like teams in France that'll come along and do well. But PSG are really the only big team in France. So
yeah, you normally get one of those teams that qualify for a Champions League. They use that Champions League money and they steal a player off like a West Ham or an Aston Villa. Or, they come across and they steal one of those star players every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, PSG don't always win League One, but
no, that's true. That's very true.
but then I suppose, they're kind of more focused on what they can do in the Champions League. So I don't know if it's going to be a move that's going to silence those critics that Messi has. That you've gone from it. You've gone from a league with 3 dominant teams to a league with 1 dominant team. Well done, mate. And is Kylian Mbappe going to want to move on at some point? Because he's a lot younger. He's he's still a young player, and he's playing for the club that he grew up with. Is he now thinking, I want to prove myself in a more competitive league? Can't see him in the Premier League because I don't know. I can't imagine who would sign him.
Liverpool were very, very heavily rumoured with Mbappe, and at the end of his contract, it seemed to be a bit of one of those shady kind of deals where it's sort of like, well, he's only got 2 more years left on his contract, and we'll just wait and see. I think he signed some kind of sponsorship deal with Nike, and Nike are the sponsors of Liverpool, and it was one of those sort of like underhanded conversations that can happen in the murky deeps of football sponsorship.
Yeah, and it's not that I don't think Mbappe would do well in the Premier League. It's just I can't really see which Premier League team would go out and sign him unless they did some murky deal. I can maybe see him being more likely to go somewhere like Italy or Germany and kind of playing, a different kind of football.
It could be an interesting move to replace Lewandowski.
Yeah, and if he's got if Mbappe wants to make a move for footballing reasons, and I was his agent, and I was a scrupulous agent who just didn't want to take the highest money on offer and sign some kind of dodgy deal that sees him go to Liverpool with some kind of weird money involved, or just kind of a Barcelona to take out some kind of enormous loan and to buy now, be saying, oh, man, you want to get yourself to either Italy or Germany. That's where you want to go and prove yourself. Go there, do well. So
that sounds about right.
If Kylian's listening and you're not happy with your current agent, then give us a bell, and we'll see if I can take over.
You'll get him shot around Europe. You'll get him shopped around. There'll be a new deal on the table in no time. Right. Well, I was thinking about doing a Premier League top 4 prediction. Obviously, the Premier League opened this weekend, and I've written down what I think is going to be my top 4 for the Premier League this season. Wills, have you had enough time to think of a top 4? You're just going to do it off the top of your head? Is that your idea?
I'm going to do it. Yeah, I'm just going to do it off the top of my head and say it's going to be Man U, Man City, Chelsea. No. Man U. I'll go Man U, Man City, Chelsea, and then an almighty battle between Liverpool and Leicester.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, you've kind of done a top 5-ish then, but
yeah.
I have to agree with all of them. I've got an order though. I've got an order. I've put Man City first, Chelsea second, Man United third, and Liverpool fourth.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel that Liverpool are going to do well because they are. They didn't do so well last season, but still, I can't remember where they finished. They did make it into the top. No, they didn't. Fourth, yeah, so they did make it into the top 4, and Leicester missed out. And I keep liking the idea of Leicester still being able to mix it with the big boys.
Oh yeah,
kind
absolutely.
of so many seasons after they won the title, and people were saying they'd be the first team to get relegated as champions. And
we deserve an extra Champions League spot in England. When you look at Scotland, for example, and the fact that they can't ever get to a group stage. They haven't got to a group stage in years. And other nations are pretty much the same. They've got 2 spots. Other nations have 3 spots. That they just don't. That third spot never gets to the group stage. Never. And a team like Leicester, it deserves the extra opportunity, or a team like Tottenham even deserves the extra opportunity. Liverpool, there's that much quality in the Premier League that there should be a 5th spot. In my opinion, there should be a 5th spot, or they bring back a system similar to the old Intertoto Cup, and there's a tournament at the end of the season between 4 or 5 teams from different nations that finished like just below the Champions League spaces, and they get to fight it out for a Champions League space and a trophy as well.
They're bringing in a new
the European Conference League,
they?
otherwise known as Jose Mourinho's first trophy is with Roma.
So like I think they need to maybe kind of like reform European competition a bit, because you can't just keep adding more and more teams to the Champions League and giving the big leagues more and more places to qualify in the Champions League. Because even though it's kind of a balancing act between, is it supposed to be a League of Champions, or is it supposed to be the best teams in Europe? And you don't want to kind of like limit the opportunities for teams from smaller nations to kind of, if they're champion of their country, to to qualify for a match where they maybe get to play the champions of much bigger countries. And again, like what UEFA want is UEFA just want to have all the best teams all playing in one competition together, but in a way that isn't the European Super League.
Well, the English Premier League, European Super League. We were going to do a bit of a conversation about that, weren't we? But it all dissipated, doesn't it? I'm not really
we were like, I remember we said one podcast like, next month we'll have a proper talk about the European Super League, and like the day after, everyone just pulled out of it.
Everyone just forgot. There was like the Euros, there was the end of the Premier League season, there was the FA Cup final, Champions League final. There was lots of stuff going on. We let it go. We let it go. Okay, we let it go.
Yeah.
But Matt, just a side note on it though. It was without the Premier League teams, it's nothing. It is nothing.
Yeah.
It's a nothing league without the Premier League teams. It's just a battle between like four other teams if the Premier League teams weren't involved at all. So it's
the European Super League.
Yeah, absolute bullshit. Absolute bullshit.
I mean, the European Super League now. I
piggyback on the Premier League. None of Spain don't get the kind of money the Premier League gets. Germany don't get the kind of money the Premier League gets. Italy don't get the kind of money the Premier League gets. And that's all it was. It was a move by those teams to get more money, similar to what the Premier League already gets. Because they're on almost half. The TV rights for La Liga and stuff like that are like probably less than half of what the Premier League.
I mean, those countries don't have breakaway leagues at the top, which is kind of like part of the thing. La Liga is, I mean, basically in all the other countries in main countries in Europe, they still kind of have a system similar to what we had before the Premier League was created, with the Football League, where there's some sort of sharing that goes, I don't know, it probably doesn't go down very far, because if you go below La Liga, then you start to get some really tiny teams in those divisions. But still, they're still all part of a unified league structure. They don't have the kind of like big league at the top negotiating their own TV deals and cutting everyone else out.
Right, well, we've had a good chinwag this week, I feel like, mates. I've got some good news to sort of end the podcast on. I'm going to let the cat out the bag, that we've got another ex-Carlisle United player interview recorded and done. And I'm going to reveal who it is. So, the next ex-pro interview on the Blue Army podcast is a conversation between myself and 121-time appearing, one-time goal-scoring, Hartlepool born defender Paul Arnie Arneson.
What a coup!
Paul Arneson completes the Blue Army podcast's five-a-side team now. Arnie. We finally got our defender. We've got Alex Mitchell in goal. Paul Arneson at the back. It's Jason Price and Derek Holmes playing these striking roles, with obviously Mark Skip Boyd anchor in the midfield.
When you bring this together.
Decent team we've got there. Decent team we've got there. I'm gonna be calling up the Masters League in no time. Apparently that's up for a comeback as well. But yeah, that interview is in the bag. I'm going on holiday at the end of September, so I might not be able to get an episode out that week. So I'm thinking I'll use the interview and I'll put it out that week maybe as ways as like a make good for not being able to do a normal Blue Army podcast episode that week and talk about the football and this, that, and the other. There'll be sort of like a bonus episode where we'll do an interview with Paul Anderson. So I'm greatly thankful that that's in the bag. Paul joined us all the way from Brisbane in Australia, where he's currently coaching. We'll talk all about his new coaching role and how Michael Bridges helped him get set up over there in Australia. And it was a great conversation that we had there. Next week, Wills, we're going to give you a bit of a break from the podcast, and we're going to have Liam Denwood from Blue Army TV is going to be joining us. So yeah, two Liams back together for the new season. And I'll be teasing him about winning the first leg of the head-to-heads, which we were doing. You can catch that over on his YouTube channel if you want to go and watch the first head-to-heads series between Blue Army TV and the Blue Army podcast. So yeah, that's to look forward to next week on the podcast. So nothing left to do but say thank you very much for joining us, Wills, and bye for now.
Thank you for having me on. Bye.
No worries. Bye-bye. All right then, me Maras, that was it. This is the end of episode 31, and the loud and local featured artist this week is the same guy, the same brilliantly talented artist that does our theme song. He's an artist called Mangy Mangy Moose. He's one of my best friends, and I really hope you enjoyed this track. This track is called No Matter Moose, and you can find that over on the Spotify by searching Mangy Moose, and just click the follow while you're there. I'm pretty sure that'll be nice. Right, okay then, thanks very much for listening to this. Has been the Blue Army Podcast, episode 31. I have been your host, Skelly, and this, one more time, playing us out on today's show is Mangy Moose. See you next time, Mara. Bye for now.